Alright, so this is one of the first few dry runs on my speech. I've been sick for about the past week now, so I haven't really had ample time to prepare. But I'm going to go ahead and give it anyways. Now that you're done hearing my excuses on how bad this is probably going to be, I'm going to go ahead and start now. So, alright. Have you ever wondered if that food that's been sitting in your fridge for over a week is still good? Or if that hamburger you just bought was handled properly? Well, when it comes to determining if your food is healthy or not, looks can be deceiving. Food poisoning is something that can cause many unwanted side effects for anyone who consumes contaminated food. There are many beliefs and rumors for food poisoning out there, so I set out to find credible answers on what food poisoning really is from people like Gary Mary, who wrote several books on food poisoning, which helped me understand on how to circumvent food poisoning altogether. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the cause, effects, and prevention of food poisoning so that you can also be more readily able to avoid consuming contaminated food. Food poisoning is caused by a harmful bacteria which gets into food and then grows in it, which this harmful bacteria consists of less than 1% of all bacteria on Earth. Because there's a lot of bacteria like in milk naturally that are actually harmless to you. And some of these characteristics of these bacteria are that they have no smell, taste, or appearance, so you can't visually see these harmful bacteria on food. And I would have some slides here to show you, but I don't. So just go with me that these pictures that I have here show you some moldy foods, and you would think you wouldn't want to eat these because they just look absolutely disgusting, right? Except for this nice hamburger that I would have, you would think that one would be okay. But actually, theoretically, all these foods are just as healthy as one another, so that you can see that visually you could think that the hamburger would be the most healthy, but theoretically they're all the same. I don't recommend that you go out and eat these kind of food, but you could. Alright, so since you can't visibly detect or see these unless you're in a laboratory situation where you could chemically react them or look at them under a microscope, you have to come up with some other ways of figuring that out, which I'm going to fix this. This is not good. I need to fix this. That needs to be in a different section. Going with me here, contamination can happen from a sneeze or a cough, or when somebody touches their nose and then they touch the food. That's something about contamination, is that bacteria don't hang out in the air very long because they can't survive. They need surface-to-surface contact to be able to move around. So these bacteria, though, once they do come in contact with, say, food from somebody who has touched them, who is sick, they can double in numbers in 15 to 20 minutes, which once they start multiplying, they can reach an effective dose within 4 to 6 hours, which is an effective dose is where once the harmful bacteria reach a certain level, once you consume the food, it will cause symptoms and it will get you sick basically. Also, some more characteristics about these bacteria, these harmful bacteria, is that they are highly resilient to hot and cold temperatures. So putting them in a freezer won't necessarily kill them. It'll more likely just respite them for a while, and once the conditions are favorable again, they'll start to grow. In hot, a lot of them are resilient to very hot temperatures. So when it comes to cooking them, which is widely believed, to be okay once something's cooked, this is a very bad assumption to make, because the bacteria actually can live through being cooked, or they have other ways of continuing and living on through being cooked through spores. Spores are what happens is when a bacteria dies from heat or some other chemical, even, they turn into these spores, which are pretty much resilient to anything, and they um, go into this dormant state, and then once the environment conditions are favorable again, the bacteria start to grow. So these spores are really bad when you cook something you store it for later. Then the bacteria start to grow again once the conditions are favorable again. Another thing that these bacteria do is they have toxins that they release into the food, and once the toxins are in the food, the food's pretty much done at that point. There's nothing you can do for it; it's gone. And these types of toxins, you can't cook them out. You can't do anything. So once you know a food is contaminated, at that point is when you need to start taking into the preventions, which the only way to do that would be to dump it at that point. Alright, and then I was going to touch on the onion bust and stuff, but I'm deciding not to. And then some of my symptoms and effects, no, yeah, some of the effects of food poisoning would be the symptoms of the short term would be fever, diarrhea, cramps, headaches, nothing you want. And the food that you consume has what's called an incubation period of 1 hour to 3 days after being consumed. It can still get you sick. So 3 days later, after saying you ate some bad hamburger, you can still get sick from that 3 days later. Which personally, this sucks when you're trying to narrow it down to what you ate and what got you sick. Because being sick, offhand, personally, I haven't experienced it. It sucks. You want to figure out what happened, but it's really hard to distinguish this when food poisoning can stick around for up to 3 days. So this plays into the psychology effect of the learning association of cause and effect, that you do something and there's an effect from it, like eating something and then you get sick. So your body starts to do what's called a perceived control, and it tries to manipulate your taste. So you eat something that you thought got you sick and then you dislike the taste. And this plays into the whole long-term side effects of food poisoning, that if you get sick from something and then you perceive it to taste bad for possibly the rest of your life. And some examples of this might be when you eat something bad, like a bad hamburger, and then you get sick from it, then later on in life you're not going to like hamburgers. So, yeah. Now, to the prevention of food poisoning, since you can't visibly see food poisoning, there's not too many ways to prevent it other than some of the generic obvious things when handling food, such as the 7 Commandments that I found from Gary Mary's book, which would be, I will have these memorized eventually. Good personal hygiene, don't work with food while sick, keep food in clean areas when transporting, preparing, and storing, only buy food from reputable authorized food sources, which I don't know if McDonald's would be reputable. That's a personal decision, I guess. Keep food hygiene clean, maintain a clean premises and equipment to sanitary conditions, meaning if you're using fish to cut on a cutting board, don't cut your tomatoes on the same cutting board. That's a terrible idea. Just allows for everything to get mixed together like that. And then prevent contamination by eliminating infestations. Obviously, clean the cutting board after you use it. And then to more of the generic things, when you're storing stuff, don't put it all together. Try to keep it in separate containers that are sealed. When they're not sealed or they're touching each other, that's when bacteria just spreads. Because, like I said earlier, they need surface-to-surface contact. And when everything's touching each other, that's when things just spread. So if you got to keep your tomatoes in a separate container, don't put everything together, like your tomatoes, your broccoli, your cucumbers. It's a bad idea. So when you're cooking it, some of the things to prevent it, the only way you can do this is maybe try to increase the acidity in your food, which you can use by cooking with onions or vinegar or other fruits, and like say oranges. You can cook with oranges, but other things like that that are slightly acidic are about the only way, since these bacteria usually do not favor acidic conditions. So, yeah. The biggest way to prevent food poisoning, I have to say, is when in doubt, dump it. Don't eat the food if you're not sure if it's been handled correctly or where it's been. Just don't eat it. Alright, so now that you guys understand a little bit about the causes, effects, and the prevention of food poisoning, I hope this can help stop the spread of the sickness. And I hope from this that we all can peacefully enjoy meals to come.